Hi, I'm Renée Walker, a mindset mentor, speaker, and lover of all things spiritual. I believe that at our core, we are all spiritually wired for love, peace, success, and abundance. Here on the podcast, we're diving into mindset, wellness, and business, but always through a spiritual lens. Let's just say we're going deep, but we're keeping it light. So let's elevate your life from the inside out, one conversation at a time. Welcome to Spiritually Wired. Welcome back to the Spiritually Wired podcast. I'm excited today because I have Brenda Jasmin with me on the podcast. Welcome, Brenda.
Hello, Renee. Thank you for having me.
So Brenda and I go way back. We go way back as friends, and we're also colleagues. We've been working together. We've been hosting some retreats for how many years now?
I think 8 years.
8 years we've been co-hosting some retreats together, and we actually also co-facilitate some corporate workshops that maybe not a lot of people know about. It's a part of our world, of our businesses that we don't always necessarily share on our podcasts. So we also do that. And, Brenda's just she just plays a big part in my life. She's that person that I know I can always count on, and it is way overdue for her to be on the podcast. So welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. And before we go any further, if by chance you're listening to this and you do not know who the lovely Brenda Jasmin is, she is a speaker. She's a positive psychology practitioner. She is also a certified life coach, the host of the podcast, She Flourishes. And Brenda's just someone who is super passionate about helping people increase their resilience and their overall well-being. So I wanted to bring Brenda on the podcast, not only because she's my friend, but because she has so much just wisdom when it comes to helping people be more resilient. is where I often sort of think about you. Anytime there's like talk around resilience, I always think of you, Brenda, because you're passionate about that, but you're also really committed to, you're always learning more. You're always like, I so admire that about you. And you bring like the science behind everything that we do. And actually that's been part of our workshops and our retreats together. It's like blending positive psychology with the spiritual wisdom together. And we have this like beautiful connection in that way. But I find when it comes to positive psychology, there's a little bit of misconception where it's like people think, oh, it's always about being happy all the time. So I'd love to maybe start our conversation there. If you can clarify a little bit for us what positive psychology actually is and what drew you to that specific area of psychology.
Okay, thanks, Renee. And I'm so excited to be on the Spiritually Wired podcast. This is so cool. And thank you for that lovely introduction. And yes, people have some misconceptions about positive psychology. They think it's a happyology or even like toxic positivity, that they think, oh, like it's about, I have to be happy all the time. And so right out of the gate, I think it's important to say that positive psychology it's about experiencing the full spectrum of human emotion. And a big thing we talk about is the permission to be human. And so it's not about getting rid of all the negativity. It's about working with difficult emotions or unpleasant or emotions or things that show up. So working with those things, not ignoring them, but then amping up the positivity. So amping up the positive emotion to help us be more resilient, to help us have greater well-being, help us to have greater life satisfaction and be able to flourish in our lives. So that's positive psychology. And we talk a lot about it being, it's showing up in the world the way you want to. So showing up as, not a version of you, but showing up the way you want to as your authentic self. and still being you and everything that makes you you. And what attracted me to positive psychology is that I always tell the story about how when I was in university, I was doing my degree in psychology. And so I had all my university textbooks, child psychology, abnormal psychology, organizational psychology, all the different things, neuropsychology. But then I also had this stack of books on my nightstand that was more like the pop psychology, right? Like the popular, the self-help books. So the Tony Robbins and Stephen Covey and, these other authors. And so I always wished I could be studying the science of, how do we get to where we want to go in life? Like, how do we achieve our goals? And so, but back in, when I was doing my degree, positive psychology wasn't even a thing. Psychology really just focused on what's wrong with people and how can we fix it. And then it wasn't until the late 90s that they realized that, oh, we've only been looking at the negative side of psychology, what's wrong with people, but we're not looking at what's right with people. We're not looking at how can we be the best we can be? How can we flourish? And so at the time, Dr. Martin Seligman, who is considered the founding father of positive psychology, he was the president of the American Psychology Association. And he said, psychology is kind of this half-baked cake. He said, we've been looking at what's wrong with people. Let's start to look at what's right with people, and let's help people to flourish. So it was this call to action. And in really, it was kind of around 2000 that they really started looking at this. And so then I was able to go get my certificate in applied positive psychology, not until like 2016. So fortunately, it's now a thing. And all the things I wanted to study back when I was in university, I'm able to, it feels more legit now. It's like it's academic now. It's not just these self-help books.
I love it. I love it. And you mentioned the word flourish. Mm-hmm. And I know that you've named your podcast She Flourishes. So curious, what's the link between, and, what does flourishing mean to you when you use it in that context?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a good question. It means so many things. I think, a person who is flourishing, they're alive. They're, they're up to something. They're really engaged with life, and they're connected to, what their gifts are and what they want to be doing in the world. And they're sharing that, and they're feeling empowered. They're feeling, and it doesn't have to be that they're doing a big thing, but that they, you wake up in the morning and you feel like, oh, today's going to be a great day. Or I have something I'm looking forward to, and I'm excited about my life, and I'm feeling good. Not every day. We all have those days we wake up, but that, when I look at the majority of the parts of my life, I'm feeling like, things are good. And I'm again, that idea of showing up in the world the way I want to. And I think, the word engaging with life, I think really says it for me.
Yeah. And I love how you the first word was just to be alive, right? Mm-hmm. To sort of bring more of that life into your everyday life, which isn't easy.
No.
It's easy because there's so many, there's so many demands, and for many of us, you wake up and it just feels like you're giving so much of your energy away to different people. And so to sort of there's this balance between the resilience piece that you teach and then the flourishing piece that you teach, mm-hmm. which is not, the two, even though they're sort of within the same vein, there also feels like sometimes you're holding them in different hands, if that makes sense. How do you find that balance between the two, which is not always easy?
Yeah, it's true. And it's, I think, And thanks for saying that it's not always easy, because I think, and for people that have met me or haven't met me, I smile a lot. I'm extroverted, and some people think, oh, like, are you happy all the time? And no, not at all. And Renee, we're friends, you know me. You see me at all the different emotions and things that come up, right? And things that happen in life. And so it's something that I definitely work at, to be positive. And with resilience, it's knowing that, life is going to throw curveballs our way. And part of it is just knowing that, having that acceptance that I keep going back to this, it's the full spectrum of human emotion, and life is just all different things are going to happen to us, the good, the bad, the ugly, right? And so when I think of positive psychology and I think of flourishing and being, who we want to be in the world, and then I think of resilience, I think of, okay, when something knocks me down or something shows up that isn't what I want, how am I dealing with that in a way that is healthy, in a way that is still honoring my emotions and what I'm thinking and feeling about something, but how can I face it in such a way that is a stronger, more empowering way? And what people don't realize is that resilience is a skill. So it's not that, we used to think that people were born with it, but it's a set of skills. And so what I know from studying resilience is that the more I study it and teach it, the better I get at it. But I'm still not perfect at it. And I think you've talked about with other people on the podcast about like our recovery rate. And I teach a course called Bounce Back Better. So how do we bounce back and keep moving and not get stuck? And so I think without these tools, life can knock us down and it can be really hard to get back up. And we might stay down. And if we don't have any resilience skills, if we have some, we slowly get up. It depends how big the wave is that's knocked us over. But the skills that we put in place, I think we get better and better at bouncing back. And the whole idea of bouncing back better is that we're actually stronger, so that, we think that, life can deplete us. And, they talk about post-traumatic stress where, we feel like, there's this thought that, oh, we're all actually more depleted when something bad happens to us and we're less strong. But there's actually something called post-traumatic growth, which when you have these resilience skills, we can actually come out of things stronger. So if you think about the most difficult thing that's happened to you in your life, it could be that it chipped away at you and at your strength. But more often than not, those difficult things, those are it's like going to the gym and building our muscles. Those are the things that actually make us stronger, and we have that post-traumatic growth.
I love that. What a great reminder for us all, because it sort of makes me think of like the roots, right? If you think of a tree and then you've got the roots, and it's like the more sort of like they're like the stress on them makes them actually grow and be more anchored into the earth. So there's something, beautiful in remembering that, because boy, like the reality is, and you and I are both, people were teachers, and we're, as you said, like it may give the impression that we've got it all figured out, and, life happens and it's like, woohoo, hey, guess what? But the reality is that, we go through it like everyone else. And it's lately been, there's a lot going on that's just not even in our own personal lives. Like, it's one thing to deal with stuff happening in our own world, but now we're also dealing with so much stuff that's happening outside of even our immediate life. And would you have anything to offer for people right now who are, a lot of the people who listen to this podcast are empaths. They feel what is happening in the world. And it's just, it can take a toll on your resilience. Would you have any advice to offer people right now in this state of
Yeah.
the world?
I know. And I'm glad you said, like, yeah, like we got to keep it real here, right? Like
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
all like, I feel it too, right? Like we can
yeah.
teach this stuff, but we're living in this world, right?
Mhm.
And we're human. And so, and yeah, and especially if you're a sensitive soul and you're, I definitely am. I feel like I feel everything and I have to protect myself sometimes because I'm too, I shouldn't say too, but I do, I really feel things deeply.
Yeah, yeah.
And as probably, I'm sure a lot of your listeners do, and as you do too. And so I know one of the things that really helps me is to remember, I can't control what's happening in the world. All I can focus on is my own world and my own life. And I want to be careful how I say this because I also think we have to be careful that we're not, we're in a place where we're so protective of ourselves that we're not taking action because I think right now the world calls for us to take action. So
Mhm.
part of what I think it's important to do for me, like, I know we're talking a lot about doom scrolling. So, like, I'm really careful and I get my news on my phone. So, I find, if I pick up my phone first thing in the morning and I start reading the news, it's like, negative headline after negative headline. And so, I've started, not really touching like not opening my phone to look at anything. I might use it as a flashlight if it's dark, but
Mhm.
I'm not engaging. I'm trying not to engage with the outside world, at least not until I've had my workout and done those things that I know, Renee, you're so big on the morning routine. And so I have this morning routine now where I'm really just focusing on my own, health, well-being, getting a workout in. And I find that's really grounding for me and really helping me to not make that the first thing. Because we know, right, when we first wake up in the morning, and I know you talk a lot about this too, that like our brain waves in that time when we first wake up, like that's when we want to be putting good into our brain. That's when we want to be putting the empowering stuff into our minds, not the doom and gloom. So I think that's definitely one thing. So to protect your peace through your morning routine or whatever it is for you, and limiting, like being aware, but limiting the amount of time that you spend, and focusing on like I love the Stephen Covey, like what's my circle of concern, but also what's my circle of influence. And
Mhm.
so I can be concerned about the world, but what can I influence? So it starts with ourselves, right? So what do I need to do to be strong and resilient so that I can keep moving and not get stuck in the negative emotions and the negativity about what's happening in the world? So how do I keep myself strong? What do I do then for my family, like my own inner circle and my friends, and then the community of people that I influence, and the community that I live in? And so how can I have a positive impact in those areas? And I think, not to get political, but like we're in, I just think of the environment we're in right now. We're about to have an election. And I think what we have to be careful of is that we're not so careful about, like, I know a lot of us during COVID, it was like, let me protect my peace. Let me just go in my own little bubble. And maybe during COVID, that's kind of what we needed to do. But now with things going on in the world, we need to have our safe space. And so I'm trying to protect my peace and have my place where I can kind of re-energize, but then go out into the world and make that positive impact, whatever that is. And it doesn't have to be political. It can be like acts of kindness. Like, who are you being in the world right now? And I think of, we're on the Spiritually Wired podcast here. Like, you know, kindness is a really big thing right now. Like, just who you are in the world. And I remember Jack Canfield saying, how did he say it? Something like, your life and your actions might be the only Bible anyone ever reads. And I know that's kind of more of a Christian perspective, but that has always stuck with me as, you know, who I'm being in the world, and like just being that role model, being that person who, and it can be something as small as I'm opening a door for someone else and smiling or saying something kind. Like that is something I have control over. I don't have control over, the powers that be, other than my vote and my little community, what I'm doing here. But I can be kind to that other person and all the people I come in contact with, and be that light for other people.
Okay, this is just what a beautiful answer and what a beautiful reminder. It's like the circle of concern versus the circle of influence. And we each, like every single person, has the power to influence in our own way. And also, sort of it's true. It's like, yes, we want to protect our energy. And at the same time, our energy is also needed in the world. So it's like finding that balance, but doing it in a way that aligns with you. I love this conversation, Brenda. Honestly, I don't even think that you and I have ever had this conversation off mic. So I'm like I'm so connecting with it, because it's true. It's a reminder that even our kindness influence and impacts the energy. And sometimes we feel like, I don't even know what to do. And I remember during COVID, like one of the things that felt hard for me was that, like, the way I see it, let's say using a spiritual lens, is that like you have the warrior energy and you have like the light energy. And I so admire people who have warrior energy, and we need warrior energy more than anything right now. Like we need those people. Yet it's not my energy, right? I'm like, I can't, it's not, I know it's not what I bring out. So I had to like recognize, and it's where I really started to be a bit more protective, in the sense that I'm like, I know that where I'm needed is more to bring the light. But what does that light look like? Right? Like it's not easy. I mean, we happen to do work where maybe there's like more of a focus on it that we can like apply, but everyone can use their light through kindness and through just really, we know that what people need the most is to feel seen, heard, and really just truly accepted for who they are. And so by living our lives where we are seeing people and we're actually listening, and we're, allowing for people to feel seen, that is a way of also influencing and bringing our energy into the world. So I love this. Thank you. What a great answer, and something for all of us to think about during this just really, yeah, it's a really difficult time. There's no doubt, like this push pull between how much, and have been I've not been watching the news, but even I've found myself getting angry and getting like the warrior in me has been wanting to. So obviously there is a side of it, and like just getting angry and then not knowing what to do with that energy, because it's just like, what do I do with this anger? I don't know. I don't know what to do with it, because it's just not something that I'm used to.
Yeah. And what positive psychology would say is, okay, well, what is anger? Anger is saying that, your rights something isn't fair, or someone's rights have been violated. Your values have been stepped on, right? And so it's not squashing that down, but it's like saying, okay, well, what message is this giving me? And, oh, well, what can I do maybe to help protect someone else's rights, or what do I need to do to set a boundary or stand up for myself, or what message is it that giving me, and how can I then navigate my way through that emotion, not squash it down, and to realize that we're meant to feel like, and so what message is anger giving you, or what message is sadness giving you, and and that's also how we're resilient too, right? Is how when we work with those things. So taking the time to honor, why am I feeling angry? What is that about? And this is where I think it's important, maybe if we're not complacent, but, or with that warrior energy, I think sometimes that anger is good fuel. And this is where, like, some of the researchers are now saying, like, we want to be careful we're not so much in this bubble, because if we're just all saying, covering our ears and our eyes and saying, I don't want to know, I just want to be peaceful, then, we could end up living in a world that we don't want to be living in, right? And so using that energy, but in our way, in our own way. And I love how you said, it was interesting you used the word light, being the light. And there's this other really beautiful concept. It's Dr. Kim Cameron. He talks a lot about the heliotropic effect. And so I think we learned about it in science with plants, right? How plants are, move toward the sun, right? You put a plant by the window and it moves toward the sun, right? And but this psychologist, Dr. Kim Cameron, he talks about the heliotropic effect taking place with people and in communities and in workplaces and organizations and in families, and how you can be the person who is that light, who uplifts others. And Renee, I totally see you as being like that person for so many of us, that you're this light, and people turn toward the light, right? And so when things are difficult, when there is darkness, we, like all living beings, we want light, right? And so being that person who is shining that light, and I know for your listeners, like just thinking about going out in the world, and if your energy isn't the warrior energy and it's the light energy, then remember that and be out there like, hey, I'm the sunflower, I'm the light here, that other people can derive some energy from that and be uplifted, so that you're then energizing them, and maybe they're the warrior and now they'll go out and do the thing that's empowering others and helping people in the world. So I think
I guess it's like honoring our gifts, right? And where we fit in. But then what you're also telling us, which I think is really important, is to also not necessarily look away or ignore when, because even, we speak of like masculine and feminine energy. We have both within us, right? So to me, the light has more of like a feminine quality energy, and this is not a gender thing at all. It's just there's a different quality to the energy, feminine and masculine, and we have both. We tend to maybe have more feminine or have more masculine in us, but there are both, and it's important to also honor the two of them. So that is also a great reminder for everyone who's listening, is like, sometimes we do need to lean into what feels uncomfortable. And that's part of, I know for me, what I've been working on too, is that I don't like conflict. I've always avoided conflict, right? It's something that I'm very aware of. I can feel in situations and I'm like, okay, I can feel some conflict. Where am I going to go? And I've always been the person to like, I'm the peacemaker and just like, oh, no, I'm fine. While as now I'm learning to be like, no, actually, this is not fine. I'm not feeling good. And that's, it's been my own personal experience, and something that I've heard in other people as well. So good to honor the two. So this is so great. Now, we were, when we were just talking about, we just for a moment there also went into the fact that how important it is for people to feel seen and to feel heard. And I'm going to use the word safe. One of the things that you've been studying and you've been teaching in corporate settings is psychological safety, which is something that is sort of, it's more of like a new term, right? It's a hot topic right now. There's buzz around it in the corporate settings. And then from a spiritual perspective and a mindset perspective, we've also been like just talking so much more about how important it is for us to feel safe in order to grow, whether it's on a spiritual level, in order to heal our subconscious, our limiting beliefs. And so the word safe is becoming, is just so important. We're recognizing how important it is. I would love to get your perspective on that. And I know that you teach it in corporate settings, but you also work with, with coaching clients as well. So we'd just love to get your take on what psychological safety really means, whether it is in a corporate environment or in our everyday lives.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. I get excited about psychological safety because, I do have a background in corporate training. And what I love is that companies are talking about this now. Like
Mhm.
years ago, this would not have been a thing. I'm excited that companies are looking at this. And there's a few different ways that they look at it. But one of sort of the key way when we talk about it in a corporate setting is that you feel safe to in a team to like bring up your ideas, or you feel safe to admit your mistakes. So it could be whether, I've got this wild new creative idea, and that that you're trusting that other people on your team aren't going to say, oh, Renee, like that idea is really out there, or or if somebody makes a mistake that they're going to be ridiculed or judged, that instead it's like, what can we do to support you? So I really love this whole idea of it. And then there's also this other side of it, which is where there's a mental health side, which is a different type of like the one is team psychological safety, the other one is just feeling psychologically safe, like I can show up at work being who I am. That's another area. But in terms of feeling psychologically safe as an individual in the world, I think there's some really cool ways to look at this. And so one of the things, there's a book that came out fairly recently by a woman by the name of, she's a psychologist, Lisa Miller, called The Spiritual Child, where what they're realizing is that when we teach children that the world is safe, and specifically now in her case, she says teach them if they to believe in a higher power, that it can create, there's cognitive benefits to that. And it could be the higher power is, it could be believing in nature, being in awe of nature. It could be believing in the universe, or it could be a higher power. But that developmentally feeling like the world is a safe place can be really positive for us. And there's this idea where this is where positive psychology and spirituality there's kind of a cool way that they intersect here, which is that if we believe the world is safe, then we're actually going to operate differently in the world. We're going to be more confident. We're going to go out there and do the thing that we want to do in the world and share our gifts and go outside our comfort zone. And the training that I've done with this resilience training, one of the things we talk about is there's mental resilience, emotional resilience, physical resilience, but also social/spiritual resilience. And Renee, from the work we do in corporate that sometimes the reason it's social/spiritual is because when we're doing the training with corporate, we have to call it oftentimes social because they're not quite ready for the spiritual yet. But if I'm doing it more in a public workshop setting, we can talk about the spiritual side. But the whole idea is this belief in a benevolent universe. And so instead of paranoia, where we feel unsafe in the world, that it's having what is called pronoia. So believing, it's kind of like the Gabby Bernstein stuff, the universe has your back. And so what they're finding, and this is really new research, there's this new scale that positive psychologists have come up with, Dr. Martin Seligman and some other researchers, and it's called the Belief in Internal Divinity Scale. And this is how much someone believes in a higher power, specifically a benevolent higher power. So a higher power, like that is something, it's there, it's looking out for you, it's supporting you. And so they actually found a correlation between a belief in divinity with measures of greater well-being and greater life satisfaction. So when we believe the world is safe, and there's this scale, there's like 26 factors, but what they realize is that when we believe the world is positive, safe, meaningful, they look at, well, how do we then act? So if I believe that the universe is meaningful, if I believe that, or the world, that my life has meaning, then I'm more likely to go out into the world and share my gifts or influence others in that positive way that we're talking about. But if I think the world is unsafe and I don't feel psychologically safe, then I'm going to act in a way that's fearful. And they've even linked it. I'm going to be more likely to be fearful, more likely to be depressed, more likely to be anxious. So this is this cool place where I think spirituality and psychology intersect, which I get really excited about, because you know me, like, and I have this spiritual side, but when I talk to people, I always like to have the science behind it. So I feel like it's so cool that now this is actually being studied. Now, for your listeners, you guys are probably, going, oh, well, of course, Brenda, like, yeah, we know this, right? But I just think it's really, if you're looking for a reason to like validate or to even say it's really great to be spiritual or to teach your kids to believe in a safe environment or a benevolent universe, like the psychology supports it, that actually it's better for your well-being and your life satisfaction, your immune system, your psychological, physical health, so many good reasons for us. And we're more likely to go out into the world and really be that person we want to be and make the world a better place without sounding too sort of cliche. But
I'm really trying to not, I've been suppressing myself to not yell, hallelujah, hallelujah. And I want to have that benevolent scale on my website.
Yes, you can actually, I can give you the link.
I know, I think I need that. Yes, it's sort of like, either you believe that things are happening to you or things are happening for you. And I know that you and I have a little bit of a disagreement around that. We don't have to go into it today. But it is, and we get to choose sort of the perspective that we have around it. And yeah, like when you walk through the world believing in more of, the goodness of it versus all of the, all of the potential threats that are around, which, the thing that's difficult, and if you're listening and you find that hard, like our brains are wired to be actually on guard and to look at all of the potential threats. So it's not anything that we're doing wrong. We're actually sort of wired that way. Although I do say that we are spiritually wired, but we're also, but the brain, so as a being, as a soul, we're spiritually wired, but the brain is also sort of like designed to be always looking at threats. So it's not necessarily always easy. Some of us were maybe blessed to grow up in environments where the safety was there. And so that makes a big difference in the viewpoint in which we have, because when we're kids, we're just sponges and we're taking our environment. So if you grew up in an environment where it felt safe to look at the world in a safe way, then that's helpful. But maybe you grew up in an environment where that wasn't the case, where you had to sort of be on guard. And maybe what the experience that you had didn't necessarily teach you that the world was a safe place. Is this like, just when you were saying like resilience is a skill, do you think in terms of when you look at safety from like the psychological safety perspective, can we learn to feel safe? Like, are there certain tools and ways that someone, if they don't maybe have that lens yet, but they see it, they want to maybe take on that lens? Are there anything from, your perspective that someone can do in terms of feeling safe?
Yeah. Okay. I love this question, and I'm so excited about this because what is so cool and why this is so groundbreaking right now, this whole idea is that they used to think that people, the way they looked at the world, that it was all based on your personality. And so it was kind of like you either had it or you didn't. And so you felt safe, like, based on, people that are more trusting or more grateful, or, that was a personality trait. But what this new research is showing is that it's actually our beliefs have a greater impact on our well-being and on our way of looking at things. And the great thing we know about beliefs is that we can change them. Personality traits, a little harder to change. So beliefs, it affects what we think, how we feel, and how we act, right? So what I would recommend for people that are looking to try and shift their beliefs toward a more benevolent universe, toward a safer world, is one, and this is actually a really famous positive psychology intervention. It's called Three Good Things, and it's looking for the good. So trying to adjust your lens of looking out into the world, looking for the good things happening to you, because there's good things happening all around us. And as you said, Renee, but our brains, our default wiring is to look around for threats. So if you're a person who does that, those are our factory settings. We kind of came that way. So we need to override those settings by looking for the good. And so look, at the end of every day, or even at the end of every week, to say, what are three good things that happened? And even right now, you could think, what's even one good thing that happened in the last 24 hours? And to really take that in. And then what happens is you start to change your lens for how you see the world, and you start to see more good. So try it. You find that, especially if you get into this daily habit, what happens is you actually look for the good thing, and you say, oh, I'm going to put that in my, three good things journal tonight, or I'm going to, that's going to be one of my good things. And so you actually start to scour the horizon, or look around your world for the good things. So I would say that's good, because that will give you evidence. So when we want to change our beliefs, we're looking for evidence. And the other thing to keep in mind is that you might think, oh yeah, I grew up like this, or I had this belief or this thought. One of the things we talk a lot about too, and with cognitive behavioral therapy, is that, you can have a thought and you can say to yourself, this thought is true. The world is unsafe. All I have to do is open, I say a newspaper. Does anyone even read the newspaper? Open your app, whatever, on your phone. Look at the news, watch a newscast, right? And you will see evidence that the world is unsafe. So now you need to dispute that. You need to look for evidence that there are good things happening and that the world is safe. And then that also fits with gratitude, the three good things. It's a way to then say, to be grateful for those good things that are happening. And another step to this is that is to say, why did that good thing happen? And what that does is it helps you to realize that you have agency, like you have some power. We know we can't control all the big things, but we do have some control or some influence in our own little world, right? So how did I impact those good things happening to me? And so I think that's one of the things you can do. And then how else can you change? I think like little things, and I think just, the kindness that we talked about, like going out in the world, and it gives you that boost of being kind. And then you start to see it can be reciprocated, or you feel better going out into the world. And I think it can just start to shift and kind of amp up that positivity that I was talking about at the beginning of our conversation. So sort of taking into, sort of focusing on the things that you can control, and just looking for evidence that the world is good, looking for evidence that the world is safe, wherever you can find it, I think is really helpful. And looking for those spiritual signs and synchronicities, I know that so many of us love to do, like every time those things happen, and I know for some people it's birds or feathers or whatever it is, right? But that's kind of that, that's again, that another tick mark for that belief that the world is good and good things are happening for me and around me. And even the belief, my husband and I have always had this belief, like no matter what's going on, and even from when we first were together and in our 20s, we would say, no matter what happens, things work out for us. Mm-hmm. And we would just have this belief, like no matter what, things work out for us. And we would just start to say that to ourselves. And then whenever good things did work out for us, we'd say, see, things work out for us. So just looking for evidence wherever you can find it, and adjusting your lens. It takes practice. It's a skill.
I love the reminder to look for evidence, and you can find evidence whether you're looking for the bad stuff, yeah. Evidence of how the world is unsafe. As you said, there's a lot of evidence to that. And maybe if you are sort of changing those factory settings, as you said, it requires looking, like really being intentional with looking for the evidence of what you are choosing to believe. And you said the word agency, and that is so important to remember. That's our superpower, is recognizing that, yes, okay, there's a lot of reasons why we're feeling, or we can feel unsafe right now, or at any point in our lives, depending on what your environment is. And we also have agency. We have the opportunity to create an environment that allows us to feel safe. And that goes, feeling safe in our bodies, feeling safe in our minds, our hearts, our souls. Like it spreads into every level, really, of our being. So thank you for that
Absolutely.
beautiful reminder. And what a great, beautiful, simple, powerful lesson to write the 3 good things, whether you do it in the morning, you do it at night, and it gives you that opportunity to just keep it in your energy field, right? I'm looking for the good things. What are the 3 good things that are happening to me today? So that's a
And I think
great.
now more than ever, and I need to listen to my own advice and make sure, I think that's a practice. Like we probably need to be putting that practice in, I'd say almost on the daily right now.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I mean it is a practice, like all of this work, and I mean we call it work because it is work. It doesn't necessarily, I mean, you have some people that are maybe more naturally inclined towards being seeing more of the goodness.
Yes.
I do believe that, but then at the end of the day, it requires sort of that consistent, okay, I get to choose, and what am I choosing? And sometimes that choice is easy because things are going well, right? Like things are feeling good. And then sometimes that choice is not as easy because there's just a lot going on around you and it requires a little bit more. And then I know you speak a lot of compassion, right? Because it's also being compassionate towards yourself in those
Yes.
moments when maybe it's a little bit harder to find the evidence. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Brenda, I could speak to you for a very long time. There is, I appreciate you so much. I love all the work that we get to do together. And I love that I also, get to walk alongside you and witness just, when I say you're an expert, you are like, you walk the talk, and not from a place of being, pretending that everything is perfect. One of the things I love and adore about you is just how authentic and genuine you are. It's not about pretending that everything is okay. It's about being real, but also in the realness, having the hope, right? You carry hope with you. I feel like when I'm with you, it's like, yeah, things are going to be okay. And you remind your clients and the people that you work with always, of that. So I'm so grateful that you've taken the time to be with us. I do love to end the episode by asking you what does spirituality mean to you right now in this moment?
To me, spirituality, a big part of it is how you show up in the world and being that role model for other people. And I do believe in something, greater than myself. I grew up in organized religion, so I've had a bit of a struggle with, finding my own way. And I'm still on that journey. But right now, I think it's about, the belief in something, there is something greater, there is something bigger out there, and that the more I can be engaged with my life and more connected to the good in life and being that person, like I think it's the daily spirituality, like I was saying, like being that person who, smiles at someone, makes a connection with someone, those moments, they call them micro moments of connection, like, that I see you and you see me and we're both human. We're having this spiritual experience and not to forget each other, that we're together and we are connected. we're more alike, right, than we are different. And so just being that person who's out in the world, sharing that kindness and joy and love. And I think love is a huge part of it. I don't know, Renee, that is a really big question. I don't know if I've answered it well, but I just feel like, and for me, it is like when the shit hits the fan, so to speak. We have all of these things we can do. But definitely, like, I still pray, right? Like, knowing that, like, I have that, that connection, that belief and the belief that things are working out and that I will be safe and I will be okay. And a big part of that comes from having that spiritual connection to, now for me, it's God, right? So for whatever it is for you, listening, but yeah, I think it just means so many things, but I think it's being an example, a loving example.
Yeah, and it's why I think I love to ask the question, because spirituality is different, and it can be different for every person, but also even for me, my definition of spirituality changes, sometimes every day, and that's okay. Like we get to be at a point in our lives where we get to be curious and to explore what our relationship with spirituality is, and there's no right or wrong answer to it. And that is why I sort of love to ask it, because it's always different, and it sort of brings me back to the first things that you said as we started the podcast, was like being engaged with life. To me, that is what spirituality is. And you spoke about it from like the lens of positive psychology and how true it is to spirituality, being alive, right? Being connected to your gift. Like it all comes together. Like that is what I love, is that sometimes like we use different languages and we use different words and in different sort of fields and different modalities, but the essence of what we're sharing is so connected. And so, and you and I working together always works well, because maybe we have different languages and different energies, but we have sort of the truth of what we're sharing is so fully aligned. But people are receiving it in different ways from us, which is so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Now, Brenda, for people so you definitely want to listen to the She Flourishes podcast. This is your second 2.5 years now that you've been
2.5 years.
So check out the She Flourishes podcast. You're such a great interviewer. You ask so many good questions for your guests, and I've had the pleasure of being on it a few times, which is always so much fun. And then you also have a free download for our listeners, which is 7 ways to be happier in uncertain times. So we're going to link that in the show notes as well. So if you want to, can you tell them a little bit more what that is about, Brenda?
Yeah, well, I think it's perfect for the times we're living in now. So how do you can be happy when things are all going well, but when we're living with all this uncertainty that we're living in right now, what can you do? So it really is focusing on the positive psychology interventions that you can do on a daily basis to maintain your own happiness during these times, and which will help you to be more resilient. And there's Wonderful. A little poster in there too, which is really cute, that you can put on your fridge as a little reminder for yourself, or maybe if you've got kids too. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so we're gonna link to that in the show notes, and then if you want to find Brenda on Instagram, she's _Brenda Jasmin. So I think we're gonna wrap it up, Brenda.
Thank you so much, Renee. I love your podcast. It's such an honor to be a guest here on the show, and I really loved our conversation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. And I want to remind you that you are spiritually wired for love, for success, for abundance, for positivity, for safety, and so much more. So I'm looking forward to seeing you next time on the Spiritually Wired podcast. Thank you for listening to Spiritually Wired. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow and leave a review. It really makes a big difference for the podcast. And if you're ready to dive deeper and join a soul-led community, come be a part of the Spiritually Wired membership. With weekly live lessons and a rich library of recorded classes, it's designed to support you every step of the way on your spiritual journey. We currently have a special offer where you can receive your first month for half the price. You can find a link in the show notes or come check it out at reneewalkerwellness.com. Until next time, remember to take some deep breaths. Remember that you are spiritually wired.